I want to give you a setup here because a map of the voting shows that the National Front was ahead in 6 of the 13 regions. Party leader Marine Le Pen and her niece both won more than 40% of the vote in their regions. A poll out today casts some doubt on whether the National Front will be able to hold their lead in round 2 of the elections this Sunday. And one reason why is a number of socialists are expected to vote this time around and change the results.
Jonathan, thank you very much for joining us. So obviously there's some question about whether Le Pen's party will ultimately carry any regions. But regardless of what it does, is the National Front now here to stay and a major party in France?
Well, it's been around for a long time, actually. It first made its breakthrough in 1986 under Jean-Marie Le Pen, Marine Le Pen's father. And in 2002, he actually made the second round of the French presidential elections. Being heavily beaten in the second round by Jacques Chirac, but this has been a long time coming, and of course the security situation in Europe, the terrible attacks in Paris, the refugee crisis has all combined to create a perfect storm, which is ideal for Le Pen.
They have yet to actually gain any practical experience in terms of governing. Now that we've got this first round under our belt and they're heading into the second round, what do you see from the National Front Party that suggests that they are ready to take a more pragmatic role in French politics?
Well, I'm not sure pragmatism is really their aim. What they want to do is presumably to use any presidencies of regions that they managed to win as a showcase for probably not so much their policies, because the French regions don't have a whole lot of autonomous power, but to showcase their discourse, their rhetoric, to get the spotlights on them, to be able to start a long presidential election campaign, because that's the real prize. And as I said, the National Front has already done very well before in presidential elections, with the weakening of the socialists, François Hollande not performing terribly well, divisions in the right about who their candidate is going to be, and the conservative mainstream right. There are plenty of signs that Le Pen could do quite well next time around too.
This isn't just a French phenomenon. It seems that everywhere in Europe, whether it's the right or the left, centrist parties are starting to fade and more radical parties are starting to gain. Has anyone in the center, in the establishment, figured out a strategy for countering it, or are they just sort of flailing desperately, attempting to hold back these trends?
Well, the big problem that mainstream politicians have in Europe is that they have been presiding over a really bad economic situation for a long, long time now, with no real power to deal with it. So all of the kind of big macroeconomic policy decisions that affect growth in Europe are in the hands of supranational bodies, and national governments don't have an awful lot. They don't really have policy levers that can make a whole lot of difference. And this is populism has been around for a long time in Europe. It's, I mean, already in Austria we had Jörg Haider's Freedom Party was in government already about a decade ago. I mentioned before Jean-Marie Le Pen's success in 2002. But with the economic crisis, this situation has got a whole lot worse. And there is a demand amongst European publics, or at least a chunk of the European electorate, for national governments to actually take some power back. And also corresponding to that, there's also a demand for increased control over borders, which is, of course, in violation of all of the principles of European integration.
So does taking some of that control back mean adopting some of the National Front's policies or platforms?
Well, the problem the National Front has is that it's not really clear exactly what they could do if they ever got their hands on national government power. The kind of policies they stand for, effectively leaving the euro, reinstating the borders between France and all the neighbouring countries with which it has deep and intense economic exchanges. There are people who live in one country and work in another and shop in a third. All of these policy ideas are fairly impractical. But what is very powerful is this rhetoric, this appeal to people's sense of feeling lost, of feeling abandoned, that governments simply talk and don't actually get anything done, and that people are subject to forces beyond their control and beyond the control of their governments.